The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Stephen Gary Blank. Picture this. It's the late 1990s and the internet is absolutely exploding. A company called Webvan bursts onto the scene, and they're not just launching a business. They're promising to change everything. Their pitch? Revolutionary. No more trudging through grocery store aisles, no more endless checkout lines. Just click a few buttons, and boom, fresh groceries at your doorstep the same day. The world's sharpest investors see gold here. They don't just invest a little. We're talking over $800 million. Think about that for a second. That's nation-state money. Webvan builds these massive, cutting-edge warehouses filled with robots and conveyor belts zipping around like something out of a sci-fi movie. They buy entire fleets of delivery trucks. They hire a seasoned, big-name chief executive. And their early customers? They're absolutely loving it. By every traditional measure, Webvan is crushing it. Then, barely 2 years later, it all collapses. Bankrupt. Gone. Those futuristic warehouses sit empty. The trucks get sold for parts. $800 million just vanishes into the ether. So what the hell went wrong? Here's the twist. It wasn't the technology. It wasn't lack of effort. Webvan failed because they followed what looked like a perfect roadmap, but it led them straight off a cliff. They executed brilliantly on a plan designed for a world that simply didn't exist yet. They built this magnificent machine for customers who weren't ready to buy. For decades, everyone's been told the same story about building a business. Dream up your idea, build your product, release it to the masses, then start raking in the cash. Sounds logical, right? Except this is exactly the path that's littered with the corpses of thousands of failed startups. But here's the thing. There's actually another way. Not a straight highway, but more like a winding trail of loops and lessons. A path that doesn't lead to disaster, but to genuine breakthrough moments. Today, we're diving into that alternative path. We're exploring the insights of Stephen Gary Blank, a serial entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who lived through 8 startups himself. Some of them were massive wins. Others, as he puts it, left deep craters. Through all that chaos and learning, he discovered this hidden pattern, this secret formula that every successful startup follows, whether they realize it or not. He captured it all in a book called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, which quietly became Silicon Valley's underground Bible and sparked the entire lean startup revolution. Here's what I can promise you. By the time we're done here, you'll understand the #1 reason new products crash and burn. Even better, you'll have a completely different mental framework, a genuine roadmap that can transform a wild idea into something real, sustainable, and successful. And here's the kicker. This isn't just startup advice. It's a profound lesson in listening, learning, and discovering where you actually fit in the world. Every important journey starts with choosing which path to walk. For entrepreneurs and anyone with a bold new idea, there's always been this one wide, well-lit highway that everyone seems to take. It's called the product development model. Business schools teach it. Investors praise it. It looks simple, logical, totally sensible. It's also, as Steve Blank discovered, the road that most often leads straight to disaster. Let's walk down that road together and see where it goes. The product development model follows 4 familiar steps. First up is the concept phase. You've got this brilliant idea, this world-changing vision. You craft a business plan, whip up a slick presentation, and somehow convince investors to hand over their money. Next comes product development. Your team hunkers down and gets to work. Engineers obsess over features. Marketing starts designing brochures and planning this big, splashy launch party. Everyone's working like crazy, heads down, laser-focused on this shining goal in the distance. Third is alpha/beta testing. You let a handful of friendly users test drive the product to catch the bugs, while marketing and public relations teams start generating buzz. The clock's ticking louder now. Finally, the grand finale, launch day. This is it, the moment of truth, the first customer ship. The product goes live. The sales team gets hired and handed their quotas, and the marketing budget gets unleashed like a tsunami. Everyone holds their breath, waiting for that flood of customers to come rushing in. This exact playbook? That's what Webvan followed, to the letter. They had the concept, check. Online groceries. They dumped hundreds of millions into product development, building that slick website and those robotic warehouses. They did their testing phase. Then they launched with this absolutely massive bang, scaling at lightning speed, hiring hundreds of people, signing billion-dollar deals to build warehouses from coast to coast. But here's where it gets interesting. There's this fatal flaw hiding in plain sight. Look at those 4 steps again: concept, development, test, launch. Now ask yourself this simple question. Where exactly are the customers in all this? They're nowhere. They're just an assumption. A ghost that everyone's praying will suddenly materialize on launch day. The entire model fixates on one thing only: building and shipping a product. It's basically one giant, unspoken prayer. If we build it, they will come. Steve Blank's lightning bolt realization was that this is precisely where everything falls apart. Startups don't fail because they can't build their product. They fail because they can't find customers and a business model that actually makes money. The real risk for any new venture isn't hiding in the engineering lab. It's out there in the messy, chaotic, unpredictable world of actual human beings. Successful entrepreneurs, Blank noticed, weren't really following this traditional path. Through sheer trial and error, they'd stumbled onto this parallel process, this second equally crucial journey. While the product development team was inside the building, turning ideas into tangible things, this other group was outside the building. Their job wasn't building anything. It was learning everything. Blank named this process customer development, and it's the complete antidote to the path of destruction. To really get this new path, let's look at another story. Rob Forbes was a designer who was completely fed up with the furniture industry. He knew that for professionals like himself, getting high-quality, well-designed furniture took forever. Customers kept telling him, "I wish I could just get this stuff without the ridiculous wait." So Rob had his light bulb moment. He put together this simple print catalog of beautiful furniture he'd keep in stock, ready to ship immediately. No fancy website, no massive marketing budget, just a catalog and a phone. He called his little venture Design Within Reach. When he approached the big-name venture capitalists for funding, they literally laughed him out of the room. They said, "No website? Are you serious? Don't you see what companies like Furniture.com are doing? They've raised over $100 million to sell furniture online. That's obviously the future. Come back when you've rethought this whole thing." But Rob didn't rethink anything. He stuck to his vision. Why? Because he wasn't guessing what customers wanted. He was actually listening to them. He spent his time having real conversations with designers, fine-tuning his catalog to match their actual needs, scouring the world for unique pieces they'd genuinely love. He was on the customer development path without even knowing it had a name. Fast forward a few years. Furniture.com, after burning through tens of millions of dollars, had become just another cautionary tale in the graveyard of .com failures. And Design Within Reach? It had become a thriving, publicly traded company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Rob Forbes succeeded where Webvan spectacularly failed because he understood this first, absolutely crucial rule of any new venture, a rule sitting at the very heart of the customer development model. There are no facts inside your building, so get outside. Your brilliant idea, your meticulously crafted business plan, your impressive financial projections, they're all just a series of untested guesses. Blank calls them hypotheses. The real purpose of a startup isn't to execute some predetermined business plan. It's to test those hypotheses in front of real, living, breathing people. This represents a profound shift in thinking. It completely changes the goal. The goal is no longer to be right from day one. The goal is to learn as quickly as humanly possible. The customer development model gives us an actual map for this learning journey. And just like the old model, it's got 4 steps. But these steps aren't a straight line marching forward. They're a series of loops that circle back on themselves. Going backward isn't failure here. It means you've actually learned something valuable. Step 1 is customer discovery. The goal here is beautifully simple. Turn your initial guesses into actual facts. You leave the building to discover two critical things. First, are the problems you think customers have actually real problems they genuinely care about? Second, does your product actually solve those problems for them in a meaningful way? Notice something important about the order here. You test the problem first, not your solution. Before you show anyone your amazing new invention, you have to deeply understand their world. You have to understand their pain points. And you don't do this by running traditional focus groups or sending out surveys. You do it through face-to-face conversations. You listen more than you talk. You ask open-ended questions. You try to understand a day in the life of your potential customer. In this phase, you're not looking for just any random customer. You're hunting for a very special breed of person. Blank calls them early evangelists. An early evangelist isn't just someone who thinks your idea is neat or interesting. These are people who have a problem so painful that they're actively trying to solve it right this second. They've cobbled together their own jury-rigged solution using spreadsheets and literal duct tape. They have a vision for a better way, and when they hear about your product, something clicks. They don't just see a product. They see the solution to their burning, urgent problem. And most importantly, they have an actual budget or the authority to find one. Let's use Blank's example here. Imagine you've developed software to help banks deal with those insane lines on payday. You walk into the first bank and pitch the president, "I can solve your long line problem." If he looks confused and replies, "What problem?" He's not your customer. He's got what's called a latent need. He might technically have the problem, but he doesn't recognize it or care about it. You head to the next bank, and this president says, "Oh yeah, we definitely have terrible problems with long lines. I feel so bad about it, I actually hand out bottled water to people waiting." This person recognizes the problem exists, but he's not really motivated to find a serious solution. He's not an early evangelist. But then you walk into a third bank, and the president's eyes light up like Christmas morning. He says, "It's an absolute nightmare. We're genuinely losing business because of it. I've actually tasked our entire information technology department to build a custom solution, but the thing keeps crashing. If you've got something that actually works, I've got a budget of $150,000 ready to go." Jackpot! You've found an early evangelist. These are the people you build your first product for, not the mainstream masses, not the general public. You build it for the few who feel the pain most intensely. Your job in customer discovery is to find these people and confirm that your vision actually matches their reality. If it doesn't match, you don't just keep building anyway. You go back, you change your assumptions, you pivot, as they say, and you go test again. This is that first crucial loop. Step 2 is customer validation. Now that you think you've found customers who have a problem your product can solve, it's time to prove it for real. The goal of customer validation is brutally simple. Get your first paying customers. This isn't about generating massive revenue yet. It's about getting proof, real proof. And the proof is a purchase order. It's someone handing you actual money for your unfinished, unproven product. This is the absolute hardest sale you'll ever make in your entire business life. You don't have a big professional sales team yet. In fact, Blank argues passionately that the founders themselves absolutely must be the first salespeople. Why? Because you're not executing some repeatable sales plan yet. You're still figuring it out. You're still learning. A professional salesperson is trained to execute a proven, repeatable process, but you don't have that process yet. You're literally inventing it as you go. Your real job here is to create that repeatable sales roadmap. By selling to those first few early evangelists, you learn what it actually takes. Who do you need to talk to? What exactly do they need to hear? Who makes the final decision? Who are the internal saboteurs who might try to block the sale? You map out every single step of the process until you've got a playbook that someone else could theoretically follow. This is the most critical checkpoint in the entire model. If you can't find a solid group of customers who will actually buy your product, and you can't create a repeatable process to sell it to them, you simply don't have a business. You've got an expensive hobby. The model forces you to confront this uncomfortable reality head-on. If you fail here, you absolutely don't move forward. You loop back to customer discovery to completely rethink your customer, your problem, or your product. This loop, going from discovery to validation and back again, is the beating heart of a successful startup. It keeps you from making Webvan's catastrophic mistake. It prevents you from scaling a business that doesn't actually exist yet. It keeps your burn rate low until you've validated your business model with cold, hard cash. Now, before we move on, there's this crucial concept that Blank weaves throughout this entire process. It's called market type. It answers the question, what kind of world is your startup actually being born into? Because, as he explains, not all startups are alike. Using the wrong strategy for your market type is like trying to use a map of New York to navigate the streets of London. He breaks startups down into 4 basic categories. First is a new product in an existing market. This is when you're entering a market where customers and competitors are already well established and known. Your goal is to be better, faster, or cheaper than what's already out there. Google was a new search engine entering an existing market dominated by companies like AltaVista. Their value proposition was dead simple. We deliver better results than everyone else. Second is a new product in a new market. This is the hardest path of all. You're creating something that's never existed before in human history. There are no customers yet, no competitors, no playbook whatsoever. When Palm Computing introduced the first personal digital assistant, they were literally creating a new market from scratch. Their challenge wasn't to be better than the competition. Their challenge was to educate people on what a personal digital assistant even was, and why on earth they'd need one. This is a long, expensive journey of pure evangelism. The third and fourth types are kind of hybrid approaches, resegmenting an existing market. You can do this 2 different ways. You can resegment as a low-cost entrant, offering a, quote, a good enough product for a dramatically lower price, exactly like Southwest Airlines did in the airline industry. Or you can resegment by carving out a niche, targeting a specific subset of customers within a larger market with a product tailored precisely for them. Think of In-N-Out Burger. The fast food market was absolutely dominated by McDonald's, but In-N-Out focused on a niche of customers who wanted a simple menu with extremely high-quality fresh ingredients. Why does market type matter so incredibly much? Because it changes absolutely everything. It changes who your customers are, how you talk to them, how fast you can realistically expect to grow, and how much money you'll actually need. The strategy that makes Handspring a huge success in an existing personal digital assistant market would have completely bankrupted Palm when they were creating that new market just a few years earlier, even though it was literally the same team. You absolutely have to know what game you're playing. Once you've successfully navigated through the loops of customer discovery and customer validation, once you've got paying customers and a repeatable sales roadmap that actually works, only then are you ready for the final 2 steps. Step 3 is customer creation. This is where you finally get to cross the chasm from your early evangelists to the mainstream market. This is where you actually start spending real money on marketing to create widespread demand. But how you spend that money depends entirely on your market type. If you're in an existing market, you launch an onslaught. You compete head-to-head on features and performance, going toe-to-toe with established players. If you're in a new market, you do the complete opposite. You don't do a big, expensive launch at all. You run an early adopter campaign, focusing on carefully nurturing your small base of visionaries and using their genuine enthusiasm to create a tipping point where the idea spreads organically, like wildfire. This is exactly where the company Photos to You went catastrophically wrong. They were creating a brand new market for online photo printing, but launched with this massive, expensive branding campaign as if they were in an existing, established market. They almost went bankrupt because they were frantically trying to create demand in a market that didn't even exist yet. And if you're resegmenting a market, you run a niche launch, focusing all your limited resources on completely dominating that one small slice of the market you've carved out for yourself. Step 4 is company building. This is the final transformation. It's where the startup stops being this temporary organization, searching for a business model, and begins scaling into a real, legitimate company. You transition from the informal, learning-oriented customer development team to formal departments with actual vice presidents of sales and marketing. But even here, there's a dangerous trap waiting. Many companies, once they find some success, try to become big companies way too quickly. They replace the chaotic, creative culture of the startup with rigid processes and soul-crushing bureaucracy. The founder, who absolutely thrived on chaos and vision, often struggles badly in this new environment and sometimes gets pushed out entirely. Blank watched this happen again and again throughout his career. He tells this story of Mark, a brilliant founder of a company called Betasheet, who was this visionary leader in the wild early days but just couldn't adapt as the company needed to grow and add structure. He fought against every new process, alienated his own team, and eventually got forced out by his own board. The company then hired a traditional, buttoned-up chief executive who installed a rigid, process-driven culture, and for a while, it actually seemed to work. But when the market inevitably shifted, the company had lost its soul completely. It had forgotten how to innovate, how to learn, how to respond to change. All the innovators were long gone, and within just a few years, the company failed spectacularly. The lesson here is that even as you grow, you absolutely must never lose your capacity to learn and respond. You need to transition from an organization run by a single visionary founder to what Blank calls a mission-centric organization. This is a company where everyone, from the chief executive down to the newest intern, genuinely understands the company's mission and feels empowered to make decisions that further that mission. It's a culture built on trust and initiative, not just top-down commands barked from on high. It's how a company scales without becoming slow and stagnant. It's how it survives for the long haul. This 4-step journey, discovery, validation, creation, and building, represents a radical departure from the old way of thinking. It's not neat or linear. It's messy, iterative, and deeply human. It forces you to stop pretending you have all the answers, and instead gives you a framework for asking the right questions. It's a path built on humility, on the courage to be wrong, and on the relentless pursuit of one simple thing: a real customer. When you really boil it all down, the core wisdom of the 4 steps to the Epiphany rests on one revolutionary idea: a startup is absolutely not just a smaller version of a large company. A large company executes a known, proven business model. A startup is an organization formed specifically to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Really think about that for a moment. The entire purpose of a startup in the beginning isn't to sell, isn't to build, isn't to market, it's to search. It's a temporary organization, and once it actually finds that working business model, it stops being a startup and starts becoming a real company. This single idea, which Steve Blank championed when almost nobody else was saying it, changed the world of entrepreneurship forever. Before this book, founders were judged by how well they executed their initial business plan. After this book, they were measured by how quickly they could learn, adapt, and find a plan that actually worked in the real world. Why does this matter so much? Especially right now, we're living in this era where it feels like absolutely everyone has an idea for the next big thing, the next killer app, the next world-changing service. It's incredibly easy to fall head over heels in love with your own idea. It's tempting to lock yourself in a room for a year and build what you believe is the perfect product. This book is that cold, hard, but ultimately kind dose of reality that saves you from that fate. It saves your time, your money, and quite possibly your sanity. It teaches you to do the one thing most of us are genuinely afraid to do: expose our precious idea to the harsh judgment of the real world, early and often. The book's most enduring mantra is "get out of the building." It's such a simple command, but it's actually a profound philosophy. It's fundamentally about humility. It's about recognizing that the answers aren't floating around in your head. They're not hidden in your spreadsheet. They're out there, living with the actual people you hope to serve. It encourages you to fall in love with the customer's problem, not with your clever solution. Because if you deeply understand the problem, you can always change the solution. But if you only love your solution and it turns out nobody actually has the problem, you've got nothing. So how can you actually apply this today, right now, this minute? Here are 3 simple actions inspired directly by the book. First, take your idea, whatever it is, and do what Blank calls the hypothesis test. Grab a single piece of paper, or even just a napkin if that's all you've got, and write down your best guesses. Who, specifically, is your customer? What, specifically, is the problem you think they have? And what's the absolute simplest version of your product that could possibly solve that problem? Don't write a novel. Just capture your core assumptions. Second, actually get out of the building. Find 5 real people who fit the customer profile you just wrote down. Don't try to sell them anything whatsoever. In fact, don't even mention your product at first. Your only goal is to have a genuine conversation about their problems. Ask them about their world, their day, their frustrations. Ask them what the most annoying part of their day is, related to the problem you're trying to solve. Then, just listen. Really listen. Your goal isn't to be right. Your goal is to learn something true. You'll learn more in those 5 honest conversations than in 6 months of building a product in isolation. Third, ask yourself the market type question. When you really look at your idea, are you entering an existing market, creating a completely new one, or trying to resegment an old one? This one simple question will fundamentally change everything about your strategy, from how you describe your product to how you plan your launch. Answering it honestly can literally save you from making catastrophic, company-killing mistakes down the road. In the end, this book completely reframes entrepreneurship. It's not about brilliant execution anymore. It's about relentless discovery. It's a hero's journey, as Blank himself describes it. You start with this vision, this hope of what could be, and you step out into a world absolutely shrouded in uncertainty. There will be obstacles, setbacks, and disasters along the way, that's guaranteed. But with this book, you've got a map. It's not a map showing you some straight, easy highway, because that highway doesn't exist. It's a map that teaches you how to navigate the fog, how to learn from the dead ends, and how, step by step, to find your way to that magical moment of epiphany, the moment you finally find your customers, and in doing so, discover your actual business. That was a summary of The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Stephen Gary Blank. We've walked through the core concepts today, but I have to be completely honest with you. A summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful national park. You can see the layout, you can see where the mountains and rivers are, but it's absolutely nothing like actually hiking the trails yourself, feeling the sun on your face, hearing the birds. The real magic of this book lives in the details, the practical worksheets, and the deep, hard-won wisdom that comes from an author who's been in the trenches and survived. This summary is your preview, designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've explored together has sparked something in you, if you've got an idea that just won't let you go, I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about absorbing business strategy. It's an experience that could legitimately change how you bring your ideas to life. Also, if you found this journey valuable, I'd be really grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. We dive into a new, potentially life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf in every single episode, and I'd be honored to have you join us as we continue learning and growing together.